Hey, welcome back to the Class Winners Workshop. I'm Car Guy in Chief Sam Baer, and today it's a hot day out, and that means we really need to know how our cooling system is working on this 1981 Corvette. And we took it out for its maiden test drive yesterday and realized that the coolant temperature gauge wasn't coming off the lowest needle. Now, keep in mind that really for the last 50, 75 years, coolant temperature gauge readings are based upon an electric signal. So you get one of these, a coolant sensor that plugs in either the side of the block or into somewhere around the water outlet where your thermostat goes, and a little wire attaches to it and goes to a gauge. Now, all this is a variable resistor. It changes based upon the temperature of the coolant. And that gauge you see, well, that's just reading the resistance. So if you put the wrong one of these in that measures the wrong resistance sway, or the gauge itself is off or broken, or if that wire is either broken or has some kind of resistance to it, well, it's going to throw off the whole works. So let's see what's wrong with this 81 Corvette, and I'll bet we'll find it's something simple, because it usually is. All right, let's get into it. So now on any C3 Corvette, you'll find that the temperature sending unit is down here, and there's just a little wire connected to it. And already I can spot a problem, and it's this. It's held on with just a little bit of wire wrapped around in an alligator clip. That leads me to believe it's the wrong sender in there. But here's the quickest way to check to see if our gauge is working. So if I just take this wire and I clamp it to ground, it should make the temperature gauge go all the way to the top if the gauge is working. So let's get into the car and turn the key on and see what happens. Okay, let's turn on the key. And boom, pegged. So our wire's working and our gauge is working because it's grounded out and reading full. So with full circuit, no ohms of resistance, it's going all the way to the top. That's a good sign because we have the new sender to fix it. So you'd think this is a pretty simple operation. I just gotta take a 13/16, unscrew the sensor in there and put this one back in. But remember, there's coolant in there. So it's about to get really messy, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Okay. So we need to get this out and this in. All right, it's starting to leak. Ready? Get in there. Come on, thread in there. Thread in there. Oh yeah, much better. Okay, let's tighten her up. Now what we have to do is put a regular connector that'll fit on there, and then we'll test her out. Well, we've checked for leaks, started her up, and now we're waiting for it to come up to operating temperature. In the meantime, the one we took out, you can see pretty clearly, it's got the wrong connector on it. So that's a pretty good sign that it's the wrong one for our application and the resistance of our gauge. So I just went to O'Reilly's, and the one that works for these later, like 80 through 82 C3s, and then C4s through, well, through the early 90s, even the original ZR1s in the C4 generation. I just went to O'Reilly's, and it's a 2.8335. So I can feel it coming up to temperature. Got the infrared temperature gauge. We'll check the water outlet housing and see what it tells us, and then check our gauge. All right, we're starting to get up into the 130 range, so let's, 137, 138. Let's go into the car and see if the gauge is reading yet. All right, the gauge is working. It's exactly where we want it to be. Well, or close enough for government work. Remember, this is a 42-year-old gauge, so there's gonna be some variation. But that's okay. It's gonna tell us if we're in general good health or not. So another project done in the workshop. It actually wasn't that messy. Not much spilled out, and I was able to catch it in a container right below. In fact, I didn't even have to refill the cooling system. There was still plenty full. So remember, whether it's a classic C3 Corvette or even a C5, there are a lot of jobs that you can do yourself. Just take the time and look it up online. Corvette Forum's a perfect place to get the information necessary to know exactly how to proceed. So from the Class Winners Workshop, I'm Car Guy in Chief Sam Baer, reminding you that life's too short for ordinary cars, and certainly life's too short for cars in the summer with no working temperature gauge.